All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the June 23rd meeting of the school committee to order and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, we have public participation. There's nobody in the room. Is there anybody online here for the public participation portion of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. We're skipping student presentations because they're done for the summer, and we're going to go on to the report of the superintendent with district updates and highlights of the final report of the statewide graduation council and district enrollment updates.
Thank you. Just a couple of generic district updates first. School closed yesterday. For those of you that were not paying attention, I'm sure you all were. End of a very successful year, and able to our staff and our team of school district leaders work this year on behalf of students and families. Just a couple things to mention that this was the year that we implemented a new ELA program, elementary up through grade 5. Year 1, by all accounts, a huge success in terms of our rollout from an instructional point of view. The work will continue next year. It takes multiple years for us to get really comfortable with a new program, so we're looking forward to that. Our grant is a multi-year grant, so we'll continue to get support from the state as we continue to roll that program out. Onboarded 3 new principals and a new director of special education, and while we're at it, hired 4th new principal who begins just next week. So just a lot of highlights this year, but we're really pleased. Looking forward to some downtime. My email inbox this morning was about 1/3 of the size it normally is on a typical morning, which is a good sign for summer coming forward. I do want to let you know I spoke last week about an upgrade to some software that we use for school security. We have finalized a contract with a company called SingleWire. This is the software that, again, it's an internal software that we will use to communicate with staff in the event of an emergency in the building. It provides all kinds of features that we didn't have before, not only a back and forth communication system, but it has an element of communication. We can use that we're off-site, or even if we're on-site, parents are going to pick up their kids at the end of the event. Much more nimble than using our student information system for something like that, because it communicates directly with classroom teachers. Additionally, it has the ability to overtake communication systems within the building, including PA systems, television screens, laptop computers, anything that's on the network. If we need to blast a message out to a building, tell them that there's something occurring or interactions, all at a fingertip. It does have a sort of panic button feature for staff members that decide to download on their phone, so if there's a worry, they can actually signal an emergency from where they are. And it has GPS capabilities, so it can actually pinpoint where the person is, pretty close to down to the actual room in a building. The other thing that SingleWire provides, I talked a little bit about last week, but we'll have an enhanced visitor sign-in system at the 5 schools and the Oxford Street building. That will use iPads that will snap a photo of all visitors that come in. You'll also have to take a snapshot of your state-issued ID, and then use that image to run individuals through 3 different databases plus a local database. So if, for example, this doesn't ever happen, but if we had a parent or who was a community member that wasn't allowed in one of our buildings or our buildings for whatever reason, there no trespass on that individual, we can enter that in our own database and we'll flag if that person attempts to come into the building as well. The nice thing about the system too is once you do scan your ID, you don't need to scan it again because it now saves that. So whatever building you live in, if it's public schools, you only have to do the first step, which is the selfie will snap of you as you come in. It recognizes your face on the way out too, so it's pretty quick to sign yourself out. So we'll be learning more about those features over the summer, and we're ready to roll them out, see them in the main offices. We'll have a kiosk with attached in every office throughout the year. So I want to thank Ellen Sharp for her work on that. We also received a third quote for our safety evaluations, and Dan and I are evaluating those 3 quotes. The third vendor is actually local. So what was nice about that is we had some school districts in the area that we can now reference calls to see how they did. So we should have more information around that potentially at the July meeting. But all the companies said that they can generally get these done pretty quickly. The last vendor actually talked a little bit about something we talked about at the school committee meeting, which was really getting specific about reconfiguring entrances to buildings, which can be an expensive endeavor, but they have experience in sort of drawing basic design ideas, where you have to hire architects and do that for the real thing, but you can walk away from this assessment with a sort of an idea of what you might be able to modify an entrance of a building. That degree of precision. So we'll look at those 3 together, and either if it's a no-brainer, we'll go forward. If not, we'll bring it back here and have a conversation. But I do think this is a good use of some school choice funds. We'll keep you posted on that. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is there was a conversation at the handbook discussion last week, a few weeks ago, about sneakers at the elementary schools. The elementary principals put together some steps that we want to have a multi-step process for students if they forget their sneakers on PE day, making sure that it's not an immediate punitive process. There could be 100 reasons why a kid doesn't have their sneakers. At the same time, want to make sure that whatever they're wearing is safe for them to be running around the gyms and not hurting themselves. So the scope of the idea is on the first offense, they have a verbal conversation with that student. And depending on the type of shoe, because sometimes it's still okay, they may or may not be able to participate. If they're wearing platform shoes, that may not be the safe way to do it. The other thing is that most of our buildings do have sneakers that are available, but it doesn't fit the child, or if they don't know what they don't want to wear some of the other some donated shoes that are in the nurse's office, but that can be an option. If it happens a second time, we would expect the phys ed teacher to contact the family just to kind of talk about, is there a need here? Understand, is there something we can do to help? Or is it just that the child is uncomfortable? Choose like what's the situation, so we could just get a, one time it'd just be a fluke. If it's happening more than once, maybe there's something else going on. If it happens a third time, they would want, maybe they're involving, the same maybe a counselor talk, is there, again, something a little deeper than something on the surface. I don't know. That's what they're thinking about. They're just trying to sort of get into to keep the child's head, I guess. I'm thinking we probably only produce this far for most kids. And administrator would contact home on the 3rd or 4th time if it's happening repeatedly. Again, mostly not to be punitive, but to try to figure out, maybe if they're talking to the principal, they'll find out if the family's struggling with Florida sneakers or something to that effect, and they can find a way to get them the means to get their child the proper shoes for PE. That's their thinking around how they would want to approach this. The last thing they want to do is have a child sit out. They really want to make sure that they're participating, and it would really just be if the shoes were potentially going to create a situation where they could twist an ankle or worse. So that's their thinking on that.
Would it also be an option potentially for, because I think a lot of this is just going to be people who forget that it's gym day. I know like 3 kids in 3 different schools, I don't know who has gym or when, but could the kids at the beginning of the year bring in their sneakers and leave them in the classroom?
Sure.
And then that way they have them to change into, that way they don't have to deal with all of the other pieces? Just since for this year, since it's a new rule, while people get into the routine of it.
If they have an extra pair, bring them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we could put in the book and principal sort of run, because kids have cubbies and lockers that you just throw a pair in there. I know for a lot of little ones, they'll have to change your clothes there in case you have an accident in the day, so it can be similar to that. Absolutely. So I just want to circle back with you on that, just so you were aware that they had done some thinking on it. And the last piece I wanted to share with you, just to get on your radar, that the statewide graduation council report has been published. There was an interim report that was done about 6 months back, but this is the final report that's been created. So this council was commissioned by Governor Keeley following the passage of question 2. You remember that was in November of 24, and that question eliminated MCAS as a graduation requirement. Did not eliminate the MCAS, but eliminated it as a graduation requirement. So after that happened, the state was forced to come up with another plan because under federal law, we need to have some system in place to monitor high school graduation attainment through standardized tests of some type. So this force was tasked with coming up with new state regulations, requirements or expectations. They note at the beginning of the report that this is a milestone and have done the report, but not an endpoint. So we've got a multi-year implementation process ahead of us, but it's good that we're at this point. I think what Massachusetts has put together shouldn't surprise you. I think is in many ways head and shoulders above what many other states do. So you should feel good about the direction we're heading. I'm always cautiously optimistic when things are coming from the state, just to make sure that there's going to be a connection between expectations and reality on the ground, and that they're not putting unreasonable expectations in place for schools across the Commonwealth. So they started by creating this vision of a graduate, which has 3 sections. They want our graduates to be thinkers, contributors, and leaders. And each of those drills down a little bit. Around thinkers, they talk about students that are academically prepared, critical problem solvers. Under contributors, they want them to be self-aware navigators and intentional collaborators. And as leaders, they want them to be effective communicators and responsible decision makers. So with this framework in mind, they've come up with a series of requirements that they put into 2 buckets, one called primary components and another called embedded components. So the primary components, there are 4 of them. There is the foundational coursework. So that in Massachusetts is known as Max Core. Good news for us is Hudson High's graduation requirement is already aligned with Max Core. So step 1 is checked off for us, and that's telling us we need 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of social studies, 3 years of lab science, and so on. So our graduation requirements have met this for a number of years. So that's almost a non-existent lift for us as step 1. The second is the idea of an end-of-course assessment. These will be developed by the state in sort of the closest you come to a replacement of an MCAS, right? So we're not giving you a 10th grade MCAS test that's aligned to the Algebra 1 and geometry standards. We're going to give you a geometry end-of-year assessment that will be a part of this overall package that shows us down the road when your diploma comes that you've achieved a certain level of this assessment. What it is yet, we don't know which courses are going to align them to within ELA and math. Those are the 2 areas that are certain. They are encouraging the state to come up with a 3rd test in social sciences or history. So there's more to come on that, but they're going to be state design. Our courses are all supposed to be aligned to state standards. So an Algebra 1 course in Hudson and an Algebra 1 course in Marlborough should be teaching the same standards. That's the state's perspective on this, which is the truth. And so they're going to develop these end-of-course assessments based on those standards, is the expectation.
So is this the same as MCAS with a different name in the sense that if somebody doesn't pass these, they don't get an official high school diploma?
Yeah, so that question was asked in a forum that I was in with superintendents, and at the time, the Secretary of Education, Weiler, said, no, that's not the case because it's going to be sort of this global view, right? So if the student doesn't pass that particular assessment, there'll be other ways that we can demonstrate. Maybe it's through, their course grades or sort of a sequence of years. It's very nebulous right now. We don't have a lot of detail, but then there's the other piece of it. That's the 4th bullet, which is the culminating experience, which means that there should be some type, by the time they're seniors, some type of portfolio or end-of-year presentation of some kind. So the idea is by the time you're about to get your diploma, you've checked all these different boxes in an adequate enough way to show that together you get your diploma. So it's not just this one test. You need to get at least this score on it or you need to retake it. And my sense also around the end of course assessments is that they'll be aligned to multiple courses. I could be misunderstanding this, but like there could be, for example, an algebra 1 and a geometry and of course assessment. So if we choose to have our students take the algebra 1 if they're in algebra 1 as freshmen, and those students didn't achieve whatever level they need to achieve on that test, maybe they take the geometry 1 the following year. I'm not sure how that's all going to play out, but it's certainly not neatly packaged, these items yet. We don't have a lot of details. They did make it clear the end of course assessments are going to be state developed. They don't want us to say, well, we have our final exams, that's not going to be okay for them. And that they're going to develop guidelines for the culminating experiences bucket. The other piece on the primary components is they are requiring schools to use what's called MyCap. This is again a good thing. As always, I worry about sort of time, and when we find the time to do that, it will largely come through our counseling department. But this is really about post-high school planning, and they want students to start that in 9th grade, making a plan for themselves of what they're going to do after high school and how they get there. So there's a huge piece around post-secondary planning that's embedded in this. And then the other components are all sort of tied in. Somewhere along the lines, there needs to be a financial literacy component, whether we embed that into a math course. The state's saying they're going to develop online modules that kids can take. The question is, when did they take it? But there's supposed to be multiple options for us there. Same with AI and digital literacy. There's supposed to be a component that they do there. So, there could be different courses that you could tie that into, but this is for every kid, right? So we need to find a way, by the time this is fully rolled out, that there's a pathway for every child to have that done.
We have a personal finance class at the high school, which is an elective. Would we have the ability to make that a required course to satisfy this?
So the issue there is it would have to take the place of something else, right? So that would take away another elective for kids. So we'd have to really look at how we can fit that into their 4-year scope and sequence of courses without it taking away from them wanting to take band or chorus or engineering, right? So that's the worry. The other thing about that is I have one teacher that teaches that in his courses as well. So if that went to the whole school, you'd have to hire, right? We'd have to have more staff members teaching that course. It's not, the financial literacy piece is not, it doesn't need to be an entire course. It can be, but it can also be a unit or a chunk of another course. So is there a creative way we can find to work that into a math class that all kids take? The state talks about financial literacy being connected to history frameworks. I don't know the history frameworks that well, but there must be some sort of economic somewhere in the frameworks that they're saying. So I think we just have to get creative and get more guidance from them around where this might fit, and then look at our own curriculum and see where it does it most. The AI and digital literacy fits into some of this conversation we've been having more recently about kids and their devices, right? So like I don't find any of this to be problematic in the sense of the concept. It's just like, how do you fit another pound into that 5-pound bag that's already overflowing? There's a work-based learning element that comes with the MyCap work. And that is also can be tied into the culminating experience. That could be an internship or something to that effect. So again, they're trying to be as flexible as they can so that schools can find a way to plug these into either existing programs or programs that are working on anyway. They're looking to expand under that the seals of distinction. Right now the state has seal of bioliteracy, but they want to have additional seals that kids can earn throughout school, like the seal of specific in technology around AI, digital literacy, civics, citizenship, and so forth. So we'll see what comes out of there. Another component that I think is beneficial, but again, we worry about time, is a requirement, again, through the MyCap process for students to, that's this one. That's why it's telling me I need to stop talking. Okay, thank you. They have students and families fill out the FAFSA and the MAFSA, that's the federal and state financial aid form. So there's research out there that shows that students that fill out the FAFSA, the math stuff, are much more likely to apply to college, right? So there is a provision here where parents can waive that option, they can opt out, but they want schools to be active in trying to get parents and students to fill that out. And then last is a whole piece around civics education, which we already have our civics action project at 8th grade, and then there's components of civics that continue up through high school through some of our electives that we had, so.
And will that 8th grade project make this requirement even though it's not technically high school?
Yeah, so I don't have that answer yet. They didn't say that explicitly, but it would be crazy to me if it didn't, because the state is putting the civics action project in the, that's what we have. So it's not like we chose there, right? It's part of the 8th grade standard. So my worry is that they're gonna say, that's great you do that in 8th grade, I need to do something in 9 through 12 with your project, which again, is theoretically a wonderful idea because we want to see kids kind of carry this forward. But where do you put that, right? Right now, kids that are very interested can take some electives, and they do these projects up until the 12th grade if they're in that elective then, but there's some clarity that we're waiting on that as well.
12-hour school then.
Yeah, right. So next year is a planning year, which is good for the entire state. So I'll be communicating with Lauren and her team around what we need to do to look ahead to 27, 28. The only implementation required for 27, 28 is the Mass Core requirement, which again, we're already there. So the freshmen that will enter this high school in 27, 28 are the class of 2031. So they will need that component to be in place, which it already is. And then the following year, 28, 29, the remaining requirements need to be in effect. So that's beginning with the class of 2032. So the class of 2032,
Class of 2032 are incoming 7th graders.
incoming 7th graders, they're the ones that are going to have all of these pieces required of them for graduation. That's the
It
sketch.
seems like we made anything easier, we just kind of have a bunch of stuff on top.
Yeah,
Not
that's,
that
I mean, that's sort of that's typically the MO from the
Bring
state.
Danny back.
Yeah, there's a lot of filing goes on. I mean, there was an element of me that was happy with question 2 being passed because there's a piece of that that's very concerning, but I also have a feeling what that meant was, okay, voters, you don't want this one test, check the box, here's a whole list of things you guys do now.
Right.
Yes.
And so there are some concerns.
No, it's on the link, the digital handout here thing, it does say, performance on the EOC assessments will meaningfully count towards students' academic record and path to graduation. So it's not just.
Yeah, so I think they're also saying that there's a possibility those end-of-course assessments can count as their final exam, right? So there's some questions we have to ask, right? And maybe the thinking there is students will take them more seriously if it's a part of their end of course, truly their final exam for their geometry class or their English class. I don't know if that's what they're really meaning there, but you can see the language they use is very right. So I'm looking forward to seeing more information come out in the fall, and we'll just keep you updated. I just wanted you to be aware, you have a link in the document I sent you just today that will bring you to the full report. In the meantime, if there are things that pop up with questions about, shoot them my way, because if I'm on calls with the commissioner and whatnot, these are things I can throw up in the chat and see if we can get some answers.
I think because 2028 is going to come very quickly and the state is not necessarily going to be
Right.
quick around this, I think anything we can get ahead of,
Yep.
asking our teachers now where AI, digital literacy, financial literacy is already integrated into curriculum. For example, I know freshman history, they did a big unit on AI and digital literacy and how do you determine like accurate sources and what can be used. That was a big part of the whole year. So we might, I think wherever we can embed this in existing curriculum instead of creating something new will be helpful. I'll also be curious if there will be, since this is basically disguised MCAS, if the end of course assessments, there'll also be kind of like the MCAS alt portfolio option that like we had before for kids who need accommodations and who don't test well on end of year assessments. I don't know if that is what they're considering part of the culminating experiences or.
Yeah, the alt assessment hasn't changed, so I don't think they plan on for those particular students that aren't, when you do the auth also, you end up getting a certificate of attainment. So that pathway hasn't changed. But yeah, you're asking all good questions, and the piece around sort of where can we point to the curriculum right now, or we already have something in place, that's a question that would be easy for us to answer once they actually give us the, like, what does this AI component look like? You know, give me 5 bullets on it, so I know exactly like what do we need to cover, so that we can see if we already did it somewhere or what we can tweak. But you're absolutely right, like I mean, I wasn't even aware of what you just pointed out on the 9th grade piece, but like those are elements that we can probably capture. And the other question I would have is, well, if we do it in 9th grade here, and 10th grade here, every kid theoretically is going through both of those grades, considering we've been in Massachusetts and, grade. Can we put those two together and we say it's going to be this part of the component in 9th grade for AI, and in 10th grade it hits this course? Those are questions that we have to ask. My hope is that they'll be flexible enough that if we can map it out and really show that they'll be accepting of it. And my thinking is that policy that we passed back in like December, that was our new graduation, or replaced our the MCAS piece that was out there. That's just a placeholder, so that's all going to get codified in the policy once we get clearer about what the 4 HUDs.
And then finally, sorry, I know you just said this, but I definitely want to keep it on our radar. Once these end of course assessments are active, it would be wonderful if our kids didn't also have to take finals at the same time. So if there's other ways for them to do their final course assessments that aren't actually sitting down like all the half-day finals that they just did, because I can't even imagine them at the end of school doing finals for all of their coursework like they did, and this in addition. It's just not going to set them up to be successful, and it's not going to reflect well back. So I think anything we can do to get ahead of that, or just.
Yeah, my sense from the conversations I've been in is that these end of course assessments can take the place of the final exam.
That would be great, they're doing them anyway.
Yeah, because to your point, it wouldn't make sense to put them through a battery of tests in late May, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you're taking a final for you, right? I mean, it's not going to work. Yeah, especially if it's the same information. So on that piece, and then I just have one other, and stop talking for a minute. Just wanted to close the year out, because that was the timeline we just talked about, just quickly on enrollment. Our May and June numbers up there, 12 students enrolled in those 6 weeks, because it was 7 weeks, and 7 students withdrawing through the months of May and June.
It's the circumstance when somebody either enrolls or withdraws in May or June, it's an odd time, but.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's a move.
Just people moving into town.
Yeah.
Or moving to
Moving on state. And this is our the end of the year, year-to-year comparison. So just one thing to note, like I will point out that you'll see that we had a 32% drop in enrollments this year over last year. We had 128 enrollments from the beginning of the year to closing. Last year we had 189. And then conversely on the bottom, we can see the columns that withdrawn out of state, up 24% over the year, from 50 students last year to 62. Withdrawn out of state are typically students that are leaving the country. There are some that are in other states in the US, but so what I think you're seeing in both of those tables is a real slowdown in immigration. So, so I don't want people to be concerned about the enrollment piece on the top, but that's sort of a loss of our families coming from out of the US. Just seeing a dramatic drop, and that's very common across the state. There are larger districts that have lost 700 and something students.
Right. And the same thing is true with AMSA. We're going to go from 12 to 18, which are both great numbers. We're very happy with both those numbers, but it's going to show the 50% increase.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
So it's all very relative. Yeah. So. And that's me. And I didn't know if there were questions if you would consider.
Yeah, I already put that up.
You did. Okay, taking the next one out of order. So that's my report.
All right, so now we have subcommittee reports, which we have none except for superintendent's evaluation, which is already on the agenda in a different location, so we're skipping over subcommittee reports. Next, we're going to take new business Hudson High School early college designation out of order, because I want to present, and I'll have to say, for the discussion for the space utilization study.
You want me to pop it right over there?
Yes, please.
So Lauren's here to share some good news. We talked about it a couple of times this year, but exciting way to end the year with this designation. Can you see it on your?
Yeah, I can see it. Thank you. I'm very excited about presenting this tonight, and I actually brought the statewide graduation council book. Yeah, I had it printed because a lot of the early college work that we've done is going to put us ahead of the release of this final report. So I think it kind of all aligns, and it's nice to see that happening. So first, we did receive designation. We submitted Part B of the application back in February, and we received word in late May that we are a designated high school now, which was very exciting for us. We began this process in the fall of 2023. We had a few road bumps. As I came into the position of director of counseling, I saw a need to really enhance the college experience for our students here. And I had worked on early college designation in my previous district. And so just trying to find a partnership that would work with us, support us, and understand kind of what our needs were was a little bit tricky at first. But then we were able to really kind of pull together a great team with Worcester State University. We had a consultant that came highly recommended from UConn. He created an entire early college system in Connecticut aligned with UConn, so he was very helpful. We started meeting quite regularly, and Part A of the application was submitted last September, so we had to work through the spring and summer. So with the transition to this position, it was a kind of a heavy lift, but really good work. And we had a few counselors and the director of counseling that is new, Jess Ross, kind of step in to see the rest of this through. So we did some school site visits just to start to think through how we wanted our program to look. We did visit the early college program in Milford. We also did have some communication with Waltham as well. And again, we submitted Part A. We were excited. Part B was a very lengthy process. We met every 2 weeks for about an hour with the consultant and the team to kind of go through what everyone's responsibility was, and that included our higher education partner as well. So we were designated in May, which was exciting. So this information is pulled off of the DESE data dashboard. What they're looking at in terms of DESE is really expanding early college across the state of Massachusetts. So again, it incorporates some of the things that Dr. Regan mentioned as far as MyCap, work-based learning programs. All of those, while we're talking about students earning early college credit or credit, 12 credits, leaving us with 12 college credits, bringing in Mass Hire, making sure that we have specific pathways for students to follow, and making sure that all of our students have a plan after high school is also a big piece of both the Reimagining High School report that we received in June and also early college in general. So it's not just the college credit, it's also getting students onto campuses, ensuring that they understand some of the language around college. And I did hand all of you the early college student handbook that talks about an add drop date. It gets our students familiarized with Blackboard so that when they leave us, they already have some experience in these areas versus just kind of leaving high school and not having any of these experiences. So this is just some data off of DESE that shows that students who are enrolled in early college, their persistence rate tends to be higher than students who haven't been exposed to it. And so again, we don't see our students as graduating and being done with us. We want to continue to make sure that we set them up for the best success after high school. So just ensuring that, when they go to college, they kind of know the ins and outs and also understand what college means and how to persist through college. Because we do know that a lot of students leave us, they go to college, and they don't always return to college for the second year. So this is sort of where DESE is pushing, more exposure. And so these are some of the program highlights. It's interesting because not but Mass Corps, we are a Mass Corps high school. We're completely aligned with Mass Corps in terms of graduation requirements. But this just shows like the progression of students and how many have completed Mass Corps, how many have been enrolled in college credit. So you can see year to year, students in the state of Massachusetts are increasing. And it's just a good thing that now Hudson is able to offer this, because I do believe that it can draw a lot of students and families into our system, just knowing that, Massachusetts is pushing this and we have a very robust program, and our students are able to earn those 12 college credits and gain the early college experience. So in terms of what Hudson Early College is, so it's a partnership between Worcester State and Hudson Public Schools. We have also pulled in some additional college credits that students can earn through Middlesex Community College. But part of the concern with that was that we wouldn't get designation with just that partnership. Our teachers were able to get certified to teach those college level classes, but the state is really looking for something in addition to just getting a high school teacher certified. So we've been able to have a really good model where we changed our schedule, which was part of why we received the designation. They want to see that you're kind of blocking some of those classes, that, as a whole school, you're taking this very seriously. So we changed our schedule for this year and locked some of those blocks so that we could have college professors come in at least 2 days a week. They co-teach with a Hudson High School teacher and kind of partner teach. And then the day that the class runs and the college professor isn't here, the high school teacher then sort of supports the students. And it's very similar to like the college atmosphere where, they're getting the lecture, a student gets a lecture, an hour or 2 hours a week, and then they're sort of off doing like group work and things like that. So it's kind of modeled, and students are getting that experience as they move on to college. It's free of charge. So one of the things that when I came into Hudson, we had a program where students were earning some college credit, but it was at cost. I heard from a lot of the staff that they felt like students were taking these classes online instead of taking like an AP class. And it wasn't really available to everybody. Part of the 5 guiding principles for early college is making sure that it's equitable and that students who may not normally see themselves as college bound are able to have that experience. And so kind of looking at what we had and morphing it into kind of what the state is looking for and what will benefit our students more is where, the planning around early college came from, 2 or 3 years ago. One of the things that is part of early college is they really want students to get onto campus and take courses. That's a little tricky for us because of where we're located. And so what we've kind of done to combat that in our application was talk about how we're going to get our students onto the college campuses. So our kids have taken tours at Worcester State. They're able to, see what the college looks like, understand what the media center is at a college, how do you access any supports that you need. And so we've done a couple of visits and that will continue. Part of what we're getting with the designation and what we did get with Part A is some funding. So we're able to run some more of those trips and get kids onto college campuses, have them eat in the cafeteria. So that's kind of where our model is lying right now. And these are just the program highlights so far. So again, we just were designated. So I think that it's something to be very proud about. The amount of impact we've already had even before the designation. We were able to first offer a psychology class after school last spring, and students were willing to come and take it and earn the credits. And then we kind of rolled into the team teaching model, which we offered this year. So you can see we've had 36 students participate already just in kind of the pilot year. And so that is something to be proud of. When we look at how much a college credit costs already, like our families have saved over $75,000 in terms of like paying for college. And we've offered a couple campus visits. Those guest career speakers also speak to the Reimagining High School, because it's also making sure that kids know what, this is what I want to do for a career, but I'm not really sure how to get there and what does it entail. So we're kind of pulling from both the mass hire and, internships and things like that to make sure we're giving students like a complete experience. So it's very different from just like, what happened, before this was a push where you were in the library, you took a class online, you got the credits and you moved on. This is just making sure that kids are able to really know what the career is and what they're getting into. So again, I feel really good about this graduation council report, because I think with early college in my CAP implementation, we're already really kind of ahead at this point. So these are just a few of the classes. So our Intro to Psychology class, these are the students on campus. It kind of talks about some of the things that they experienced in the class, and there were approximately 20 students that took that class. You can also see the course taking sequence. Some of the reasons why we chose some of those classes is a lot of them are courses that kids need to take as like a first year college student. So if we can kind of get those courses out of the way, then kids enter college already having some of those prerequisite courses, and then they can start to take courses that they're very interested in. So our psychology class was really popular. The other thing we did in our work to try to plan this out is survey students. We do have like a great psychology course here, but students are still really interested in taking more and more psychology. So we didn't just like decide as adults what we were going to offer. We surveyed the students and tried to make sure that we could both align the prerequisites with what was going to give our kids kind of a leg up when they left us, but also like what are they interested in. Our next course was Intro to Business. This was a course, I believe the first course that was taught during the school day. So we had a Worcester State professor come in and he kind of team taught with Mr. Langan in our business department. There were 23 kids that took that course, and every student that we've had take an early college class has passed the class and earned the credits. So we have not had any student that hasn't been able to earn those credits. We have been very thoughtful around our English learner population, because a lot of those students have wanted to take it. So we've worked with the English learner teachers to make sure that they're supporting them during like our art block if they have questions and things like that. So in terms of the supports, we're making sure that it's, open to any student that wants to take these courses and earn the credits. And so the business course went really well, and the kids all did presentations, which I was able to sit in on, and they did a really nice job. So it's again that culminating experience or building what's either a capstone project in terms of the new graduation council or a portfolio. Like all of these courses are pulling in like that end of the year, like the last thing that you're doing in these courses to make sure that it's not just an exam. The state also wants the end of year assessments, but also what kids have learned and how they can showcase that. And then we did an intro to philosophy class, which was this past spring. Kids really liked it. It was co-taught with Amy Plakowski. She's an English teacher, but she has some interest in philosophy, so we were able to pair them up. And just the kids have done really well. They also, those students have, toured Worcester State, and I think there was an early college summit that our kids were able to go to, and also like kind of meet other students that are in early college programs. And then just the Massachusetts is pushing an early college initiative. So again, I think it's just year after year, there will probably be more high schools that are designated, but I think with our consultant and our partnership, we still are going to stand kind of above what some other schools are offering. We were really lucky to work with Brian Wilshire from UConn, because he knows DESE really well, knows, kind of what they're looking for and how to make sure that we're leaning on the higher ed partner as a partner and not just trying to take on all the work as a high school. So I feel really strongly that our program is going to be one of the best. And so just, connecting it to both the district, wanting portrait of a learner, vision of a graduate. This is also pulled into Massachusetts Early College Initiative. And then just in order to be designated, it's a 10-month planning process. I feel like ours was two to 3 years, just because there was a lot of things that we had to kind of pull in, and we had a partnership that didn't have that higher ed as a partner. It was more like, okay, you do this and we'll give you some of the credits. So Worcester State has been really great with that. And I think in general, the state is looking to move on these programs. So we do have 5 years of initial designation. So they'll kind of track us and make sure that we're kind of doing what we said in our Part B application. We will have some funding, which we haven't really heard what the funding is in terms of amounts. However, what we've done so far is that the higher ed partner, so Worcester State, has been able to get grant money so that our kids don't have to pay for the college courses. And so some of the funding will kind of offset the fact that they've covered the cost for our students all along. But I don't believe, that this is like a 5-year and then they'll take the funding away and we'll be stuck. This is something that, the state is really looking to push, and higher ed, having a partner in Worcester State, the funding, I think will come together as we move towards the future. So I think that's it.
Any questions?
Just sort of dumb question, even with the psychology and you're talking about them, is it instead of taking a class, so they have to take both? So somehow they fit both into the.
Well, so they don't have to take both. So if they take an early college class that's run during the day, they take that during one of their blocks. There has been some concern around, well, is that gonna pull back on AP? It's really not. It's it's not the same course. An AP psychology is different than an early college psychology. I think one of the things that we have run into in terms of scheduling is if you're a student who's taking 5 APs or APs junior and senior year, a lot of times you have to make a choice. And so I think just adding additional courses that are higher level and having, that exposure to, the psychology, and then having the AP goes to a different level. And AP, while we're still running all of our, this hasn't pulled away from any of our courses. I think a lot of staff was concerned that, this was gonna take away from some of the other courses, but we haven't seen that at all. And the other thing we're really trying to shore up is we had kind of a larger group of students going out on work study, but with the work-based learning plan and kind of aligning that, we're really pulling more kids back. I feel very strongly that students should be in front of teachers. And I think this year in particular, just with the changeover, we sort of opened the floodgates and it really didn't serve our students well. So I think that we will see as we bring kids back into the building in terms of eliminating, if you work part-time at Shaw's 5 hours on the weekend, you don't get a block off during the school day. We still want you in school. That'll offset maybe some of the concerns as well on, the numbers in classes. But at this point, we haven't seen anyone who's lost a course because we brought that in. And I think that also goes with the partner teaching. I know Chris Langen at first, when this was kind of introduced, he was a little bit hesitant about it, early college in general, and then he was very, he presented with us when we were kind of pushing it out to the staff about how he was concerned about how the experience was going to go, but it went really well. So I think the more that we get teachers kind of seeing that the partnership and getting the kids and having this kind of person that's higher ed to bump ideas off of is a benefit for everybody. So
that's great. And the 3 that were offered, the 3 classes, was that just a pilot, or is there going to be more classes offered, or is that what we said?
Yeah, so this is, if you,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. This is what we've submitted for. It doesn't have the years on it, but I do have the course sequencing. So in the fall of next year, we'll have, yeah, so it's kind of a sequencing. We have a math course that's going to be offered, college writing, we have environmental sciences running in the fall, and a math course is running in the spring. So it'll be all of these courses, and we kind of built it out to make sure that we were pulling in student preference, but then you can also see that we had to build out the pathways, which is also part of like reimagining high school. So
Amazing, great work.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This is gonna be an oddball question, sorry.
that's okay.
For the students who complete, X number of credits for this, does that change, their application process to Worcester State specifically?
No.
Okay.
So they can apply when you get a chance in the handbook, it shows that there are certain benefits Worcester State will give them, but you can transfer these college credits as if you were like a student at Worcester State in college and then you were transferring to any other school, and you can transfer them with you. In my experience, like I've had students that have taken college credits through like Mount Wachusett Community College and ended up graduating early from UMass Amherst. Some of the private schools, that's another the higher ed piece is right now they're taking all credits. But again, like they have their unions and so I think Massachusetts in general is trying to really feel that all out, but the credits should transfer to any college. It's not Worcester State specific at all.
John?
And on your beginning slides, you had that you're partnering with WSU, which is Worcester State, and RCC, what's RCC?
I don't know what that is.
I saw it too.
RCC. We do have a partnership with Middlesex Community College, so I'm wondering, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
I was curious what RCC was.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a couple other ways for kids to earn credits, so like through Project Lead the Way, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, but there are other things that the kids have to do in order to earn those credits. Yeah, so we have, we were looking into like Quinn Segment Community College. We're always looking for like additional partnerships, and that could be, what was on the slide. I actually pulled that from the Project College presentation that someone else did. So.
Could be Roxbury Community College.
Roxbury, yeah. Yeah. Because they did do a visit at Roxbury Community College. I think that's what it is. I think it was a visit there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on this.
Thanks.
I think we're all pretty excited about this.
Yeah.
And, appreciate all the work. Sounds like successful.
YAMSA does not offer this, I
Thank you.
assume, right?
I took the one right out of your mouth, I knew where you were going.
So this is huge for us, and this is, and I've already talked to Brian about this, this is what we need to advertise to like 4th through 8th grade parents, to get this in front of them before they start considering it. Because when you take everything into account, Hudson High School with early college, AP courses, athletics, the arts, if you take everything, Hudson High is the best choice. And it's starting to show that we're inching our way back to not having as many kids choose other options. So I think this is a huge piece in that, and I'm very, very pleased. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think we should think about, we have that Hudson High glossy that we put together this year. We should think about like almost like a postcard that we can work on in the fall with Carrie to say like a two-sided thing. We can do a direct mailing with some basic information to families of 4th and 5th. I don't like to seem odd, but sort of explain in a way that as you're thinking of your child's future, right? Just so they know. I mean, we can mail to more grade levels than that, of course, but we have something that's standard that we can push out.
I think when I initially said either on the phone or an email to you, that I think I said 5th, 6th, and 7th. But 4th and 5th gets out in front of IMSA, and then 5, 6, 7 gets out in front of ASSA. And, not to say that IMSA might not be the best choice for someone, or that ASSA, if they want to, have a vocational education, it's the right place for some of those kids. But to get this information out there,
So we can
something
make
that helps.
educated decisions.
Yeah.
Is our marketing team highlighting that then?
Yeah, we will, yeah. I mean, Leah can do a good job with us to help us put that car together, for example, and she was really instrumental in helping us design the glossy, and then Lauren and the team helped them build the actual information, but she's got a good eye for what might capture somebody if they, you know, and I'm thinking card because it's something easy, you label on it, throw it in the mail. Grab it, it'll find other ways, right, we put it on those social media. I plan on going to the fifth grade night at Quinn in August. I don't know if Tim knows this yet, but just to, you know, say hello to families that are in fifth grade, but also sharing some highlights of the district. And that way, if I'm saying it instead of Tim, it would be like, why are you talking to us about whatever? I can, as a superintendent, say, you know, as you're entering middle school, we want this to be sort of your forever home. And that's in public schools, and here's some of the things to think about at Quinn and beyond. 2 minutes, like I don't want to steal the show, but like giving people little bits and pieces, because those applications come up pretty quickly.
Very
helpful. Again, just so they have the information. They can listen. That's it.
Yeah, no, that's great, because it's mostly parents there anyway, so, and I think we talked about too, I think it's in 7th grade, when families come here, we sat over there and we saw the differences between Assabet and Hudson High, but having this in as a distinct slide, I think will lead that great decision for them.
Because you mentioned wanting to look for more partners, has a conversation taken place with Worcester State about leveraging the consortium that they have in Worcester schools? Because the consortium goes from school to school, and there's now, I think, 7 or 8 of them.
Are you talking about Worcester Public Schools?
No.
Oh,
No, it's Holy Cross,
Oh.
Clark, Worcester State, Assumption, and I'm gonna forget the rest.
yeah,
It's all the Worcester schools,
Colleges.
colleges, it used to be Anna Maria, what this was.
Yes.
Might be Nicholson, I'm not sure.
yeah. Well, when we first started trying to find additional, so my experience had been with Fitchburg State and Mount Wachusett Community College, because they have almost like an early college program where they're working with various high schools, and they just weren't taking on anyone new. So I had called Holy Cross because someone had said back in the day we had some students taking courses at Holy Cross. I think a lot of the private institutions aren't getting on board because they're not sort of under what the state is looking for. And also, I mean, a course at Holy Cross is thousands of dollars versus, you know, not that Worcester State isn't thousands, but so there hasn't, I don't believe across the state when it comes to early college partnerships that there's a whole lot of private schools joining in, but Quinsig, we had conversations with Quinsig, and then they had like shifted to a new director of early college programming. I had worked with them previously, and prior to the director they have now, it just wasn't like an experience that I felt like our kids were benefiting from. But it would be interesting to see as the state is pushing more and more of this, if other colleges will kind of get on board.
Yeah, because any of those school students can go to any other school and get credit for it at the same cost that they pay at their school.
Yeah.
So that arrangement already exists. It might be one of the few where you can leverage a private institution.
Right, that's a good idea.
So
yeah,
I definitely would recommend it. And just another thought locally, Framingham State,
so that was our original.
did they just not, they were original partner and just.
Yeah, we were working with, and again, I was trying to call as many schools as possible, and the woman that stepped into the role had started like the day before, and they worked with Waltham, and they were working with Milford, and in terms of like the visits and hearing about like the support that was given, it just didn't seem like the right fit for us at the time. And it was even like we were at a summer institute at Tower Hill, and we were on a call because like our partnership hadn't like given us information about the deadline for a grant. So it was just it was a lot. I think there was a lot of new people in the position, and then just there were so few, you know, kind of partnerships that were open that everyone was kind of overwhelmed at the time. But I do credit like the team that we're working with now, and especially our consultant, just kind of being able to, I guess, make sure that it is a true partnership and it's not just like us trying to continually But it's a long process. I mean, it was in my previous district too. I left right before, the designation happened, but they do have quite a few rules that they want you to kind of follow, and having our consultant know that those are the things, like changing your schedule is a big thing, it was a big lift. Ensuring that we have mass hire already in the building and working with students, so.
I also love the part about making it available for all students, I think that's a big piece, because that's the whole point, right, is to, even if they don't envision themselves going to college, they go, I can't do that.
One of our students that actually earned more than 12 credits, because they also took some of the courses that were like offered outside, is a student who had like a pretty significant IEP. And was, so these kids are finding success with the appropriate supports, which is really
This is back when we sent kids to Holy Cross, it was a totally different program. Like maybe 3, 4, or 5 kids would leave Hudson High during the day, at the end of the day, go to take the class at Holy Cross and then come back. But it was, only 3 to 5 kids, and you had to be, at the very top of your class. This is much better and broader to give access to many more people, and it's here in Ireland.
And it's great that it scales in that way, that you can get people who might not be thinking about it, but also some of our, high achievers, across the board. It's just a success for everybody.
I love that. Great job.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Standing ovation.
You might hear to say.
No, I'm tired.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the draft space utilization study report.
Yeah, so as I do up the visual on this, I just want to note that we have, sorry, I'm just trying to. We have a more detailed full report that Dan and I are going through right now, and so there's a lot of information in there about sort of what the study looked like, so we will publish that for you and the public, probably by the July meeting. It's just, we need to go through with the fine-tooth comb, but I didn't want to end the year without talking to you about the particular option that the group that worked on this gelled around, and so that's really what tonight's conversation is about. I also want to set this up for anyone that's catching us at home, or even the board here. I'm not coming today and say this is the option that we are moving forward with, right? But I think this is the best option that we should work with to develop the overall plan, which I see us doing into the fall and engaging with other stakeholders. We want to talk together on how you want to do that. But I think it's important that we find ways to engage the public around this. You'll see at the end, there's a price tag on this option that's quite hefty. And so this is a commitment in the community. And when we talked about this way back when we started the override conversation 2 years ago, we were talking about school consolidation. And one of the things I said at the time, I think at the select board meeting or tri-board meeting, was that yes, absolutely, but there's a cost that's involved with this. Ultimately, we become more efficient, but there's upfront costs that have to go. So I just want the committee to know I'm not sharing this as like, here's the plan, let's get it together. It's like, here's the meat of sort of the idea that we juggle around and now we really need to put.
When do you hope to make a decision by?
So ideally, like at some point during sort of midway through next year, I think there'd be something that's really gelled. Because of the cost, we're talking about getting ourselves in the NSBA process, which is the state reimbursement program for school building. I don't see anything like this surviving, community outreach and a vote if we don't get support from the state. So, and that's a multi-pronged, complex process that starts with us submitting a statement of interest. So I want to look, it's part of what I want to do this summer to sort of get that timeline in place. I don't, there are other elements that usually have to do too, like this is a space utilization study, but there's generally a feasibility study. There's other elements that we may be thinking about that you do need to go to the town and ask. Well, there could be like a free cash ask for next year, for example, to say, we need X dollars to do this particular study so that we can be ready to do a statement of interest to the MSBA. I admittedly do not have all those details in front of me right now, but I think if we can sort of gel around an idea by the end of the calendar year, I think that puts us in a good place.
And I think another way to frame this is we have to remember that we are putting in a strategic plan, if that's the right word, for what needs to happen, say, 5 years down the road.
Right.
And we're the department in town that does that the most, so that when something comes up 4, 5, 6 years from now, it's not a surprise to anybody. And that we need to get that ball rolling now. And we're talking about things that are about 5 years down the road. It's not something that's next year or the year after, and it needs to be put in place now.
And a lot of that is because of funding, right? I mean, when you're talking about millions of dollars, there's just no way to feasibly put something in place without that long range planning. So I want to just walk you through this, and again, keep in mind there's a whole lot of pre-information that I'll give you in the full report in the coming weeks. So we have the draft report. It's currently under review. Through that process, we looked at 9 different options, and may have been another 9 split into 8. Chris was represented there, representing the school committee at all of these meetings. We also had Dan Gale, Director of Finance and Operations, Dave Rousseau, our Director of Facilities, and then Elise Bundy from Special Education, Alan Shuck from Technology. So we had a bunch of people at the table, different stakeholders, but it was intended to be this process an internal process first. Like, this wasn't a public forum yet. You can imagine what that might look like to try and do this with input all the way from the beginning. So we really need to hash this out. So we settled on what in the process came out as option 2 as preferred. That option, if fully executed, would allow us to close and somehow offload Apsley Street, which would theoretically provide the town with some level of funding, because I would assume the town would not repurpose that building, that they would like sell that building. And we would hope that part of that plan would be that the funds from that would go towards offsetting some of the costs of the overall plan. Apsley Street is at the end of its life. It has been for a decade, and so the sooner we can get out of that building, the better we are, because we're just waiting for something to happen that's going to cost money that we don't want to spend. It does not do anything to the Hubert building. That was a part of this study. They looked at Hubert. The CHAPS program, for example, which we have an agreement with, there's no need for us to worry about asking them to change their plans. As far as we're concerned right now, Hubert is not a part of our necessary building envelope going forward. If CHAPS were to decide down the road that they didn't need the facility anymore, it could be another piece of property that the town could then offload or repurpose for itself, but we don't see a need for it for Hudson Public Schools activities. Farley would shift from a pre-K 4 to a K4. Forest would shift from a pre-K 4 to a K4 with an addition. The Mulready would shift from a pre-K 4 to a pre-K building that would be expanded for the town. So one of the reasons why this option is really attractive, in my opinion, as the town's educational leader, is right now we have essentially 3 typical pre-K classrooms, and we have 1 for students with more severe special needs. People are looking for preschool space, and so it's an attractive option for members of the community, because tuition for public preschool, it is tuition, but it's very reasonable when you look at that compared to private preschools. It's a benefit for the school district because we get pre-K kids as early as 3 in front of certified teachers starting that learning process that they're continuing. So the more kids we can get into a Hudson Public Schools pre-K classroom, the better served they are. So right now you'll see in the plan, it's showing them already with the building with 4 pre-K classrooms set up, but there's 4 additional spaces unused. So depending on how we would roll this project out, it could open with a preschool that's more than double its size in terms of capacity for the town. Tuitions would offset some of the costs around that, but it wouldn't pay for, right? So that's, again, a piece of the cost where you got staff. So that's an option around option 2 that I think makes it attractive for families.
Also, we think that within 10 years or so that the state might mandate pre-K, full day pre-K, and we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and if they,
So as the state did with kindergarten, we think that's gonna happen pre-K. Putting a plan in place like this now is gonna allow us to have the room to have full day pre-K 10 years from now, so that we're not scrambling to put an addition onto a building then.
and there are grants in place for public pre-K programs, and if we have this plan that the facility that has space, we're in a very good position to apply for grants like that to get pre-K program, increase our pre-K. Pre-Ks that we have now are very successful, teachers are extremely talented, and they service students with disabilities and students without disabilities in the partner classrooms so that there are typical peers, and that model will continue in all of these classes and students. Right?
If we did decide to go in this direction, would there ever be an opportunity to expand full-day pre-K before the state mandates it?
Yes.
Sure.
Because then you could charge more for tuition, right? So,
You would be a larger tuition. Yeah, I would think that if we go in this direction, we'd be looking at a combination of seats that are full day and partial day.
And the space for the room too, if they're only there half day, then that room is empty for the other half day.
Well, we usually do 2 sessions, we do an AM and a PM.
What do we have at Human School?
At Hubert right now, there's CHAPS. The CHAPS program has a pre-K there.
But we have.
Yes. So we have 2 teachers there because some Hudson Public Schools preschool students who have specific IEP needs attend the CHAPS program. And the agreement we have with CHAPS works out in our favor in terms of they use the space for a very nominal fee. Our students attend that program with our special education teacher support, licensed special education teachers, with very little to no tuition, right? So it prevents us from having to find placements for students that need the supports out of the district because we don't have the space, so.
It's different than the program that's on Forest Ave.
Correct, yes.
Another program there, right?
Yeah, but that program at Forest Ave, I can't speak for CHAPS, but they have younger classrooms there, and infants, and so it's a very different setup. It's more of a traditional pre-K for your CHAPS building. I'm sorry, at the Hubert building. And just to finish this slide, there are no changes at Quinn. The only changes they're proposing at the high school is to think through more about sort of our CTE, our career technical ed programming, and how we might want to modify the space for any programs there. And then the price tag, which I'll talk about in a moment, is about $8 million in 2026 money, right? So 5% of the road.
With setting it up for state reimbursement.
So, yeah. So,
And sales tax.
right.
Can you just speak to that for a minute unless it's coming up? Like, what does the state reimbursement look like? Like, what are we looking at average reimbursement rates?
It widely depends on the community's sort of ability to pay. I think, what was this building, about 50%?
This building?
Was it more?
70.
Okay. So this high school was a higher percentage. I'm not sure we're seeing percentages like that anymore in the state program, and more around the 50% mark. Some communities they don't use MSBA because when you do go through the program, they have a lot of requirements that often increase the cost.
Similar to what we talked about with the rate.
Similar to those projects, yeah, the rapid repair projects, they end up costing you more sometimes going through the state reimbursement process.
What did Dan say he thinks our reimbursement would be? It would be more like 55%. 55%.
So roughly, we're looking at about 58% from state reimbursement, some potentially from the sale or whatever happens with the Apsley Street, some from increased tuition, being able to expand the pre-K, and then the rest we would be left with kind of exploring options with
Yeah, it
the
would
town.
have to be a ballot question, yeah, which is usually the case when you build a building, the community has to vote for the other portion.
But
with the
remember, sorry.
I was gonna say, with the MSBA, the only part they would be reimbursing would be the ad rental at Forest Ave.
Right.
There's no reimbursement program for the
Modification.
other elements, or we could consider their repair programs, right? If we needed a roof or something to that effect, we could consider that, but we've seen right now, through 2 roof projects, that we got a better deal doing it not through MSBA's repair
I'm reading
program.
this correctly, that it's the Forest Ave is the significant chunk
Yes,
That's all.
yep, and I'll talk about that, as I go through.
But remember, we are already 13 years into Quinn, right? Is it open to 13?
13.
So by the time this gets to the forefront, then gets built, you could be looking at Quinn being off for that exclusion. You'd be looking at the present police station being off for that exclusion. So there's other factors to consider. So after say reimbursement, whatever ends up costing us, so much time will have gone by that other things will have come on.
So we talked about some of these benefits. I think the expanded pre-K is a great option for the community, great for kids. The opportunity to really focus in on space at the high school for a career tech ed program, and then consolidating the elementary schools. We would not have an impact on the CHAPS program. The Forest Ave building, if anything came out of this study, is really the building that needs the most TLC right now. It's original, built 1975. The boiler is updated, but everything else in the building.
And it was retrofitted.
And it was
built as large open classrooms. So it would be 4 classrooms in these pods.
Right.
And it was all retrofitted back, because that was the wave at the time.
Yeah.
And it was retrofitted back to being,
Didn't have enough presentation.
sorry.
And then obviously one of the initial pieces around consolidating elementaries was this idea of being able to staff more efficiently. If you have 2 buildings as opposed to 3, whether it's shared staff or just being able to utilize classroom space. This is just a visual just to show you the bottom right corner that's circled in with the red dotted line. That's the elementary population. Beyond the center point of this chart is projected, and on the left is historical. It's a clearer view of this in the final report. Share it with you. Green band on the bottom, dark green is elementary, middle is you can see enrollment is expected to recover a little bit over the next 10 years or so. But they're not projecting that Hudson's going to get back up to where we were back in 15, 16. So we'll start to approach sort of pre-pandemic levels. But it's interesting how you can see, the bubble's going to be at the elementary. That's growing a little more steady than the high school. But it's not a significant increase. So they're not, even with the building that's going on in town, they're still not expecting. And NESDEC is usually, you remember we did a separate study for a deep dive into our enrollment as a part of this with NESDEC. And so we have another whole separate report that I'll release at the same time as the space needs study, but it looks like our enrollment is going to be fairly steady. So there's worries, we'll close at elementary, what if enrollment's increasing, that this is a good time for us to be thinking about consolidation because enrollment seems like it's improving.
And I know this will be in the full reports, but can you just tell me, generally speaking, where the projections came from? Birth rates, developments in town, school choice, like all of that?
All of that together, yeah. That's why we enlisted with NESDEC, because they do the deep dive and they have their models that they use. And, we get a report from them every year as a member district. They're pretty accurate. And for additional dollars, when you're doing something like this, they'll do an even deeper dive into the data for us. So, they actually, when they were looking at, they look at future building projects, they look at open space in the community to see where could there be potential development, what does that look like? They look at the houses that are being built down towards leaving town on Main Street there on the left. They can look at those homes and say, based on this, you're going to see an increase of this many. Right? That's the forest district. They're looking at an increase of like in the teens. It's not like I see those houses and I think, oh my God, this kid's coming. But you need to remember that there'll be kids of all ages there, right? So you're talking about some in Quinn, some at the high school, but then also, and kids age, right? So it spreads out over time. So it's not like it feels when you see these houses going up. So it feels much more manageable.
And I think with the high school, you're going to see these actual numbers be a little higher than they are right here.
Yeah.
Because of everything we're doing with marketing, early college, Chapter 74 technical programs. I think you're going to see these high school numbers end up being a little bit higher.
Which is okay, because we can absorb kids in this. And so I'm not worried about if numbers went up by a dozen, 2 dozen kids even at this building, it'd be perfectly fine to absorb. It may have, at some point, we're gonna get to a point, you might have some staffing implications, but right now, so I'll just go through the elementary piece here, because again, keep in mind, really nothing significant at Quinn or the high school. But at Farley, as they look ahead using the NESDEC numbers, through 2033, the highest projected enrollment, if we use this option, right? So we're looking at 2 K-4 elementary schools, would be 395 students. Square footage of Farley is just over almost 76,000 feet. There would be no additional space needed. As a matter of fact, in the plan, right now, they're projecting that there would actually be 1 room with 1 expansion classroom. So it would be 1 unassigned classroom. They use average class sizes of 18 for kindergarten, 20 for grades 1 and 2, 24 for grades 3 and 4, to just make the numbers work, so people understand. And so you can see under this plan, it would have 22 classroom sections at Farley to accommodate a minimum capacity of 362, meaning that if there were less than 362, that 22 classrooms might be 21. But they use a range. So if we're anywhere between 362 and 463, we can accommodate that with 22 classroom sections at Farley School. 463 is much higher than what they're projecting, but that's the max that you can service in that building with the 22 classroom sections. So Farley actually will be, close to what it is now. You're not going to see a significant change.
Is this still assuming that dual language will only be at Farley?
Yes, yeah, and they took that into consideration as well.
And obviously what we're seeing there is the average number of students per section per grade in the second column.
Yes, that's the number that they use to calculate, right, exactly. So at Forest, this is where you'll see, again, if the plan, we went this direction, by consolidating down to 2 elementaries, the highest projected enrollment would be 650. It's a large elementary school. The existing square footage at Forest is 60,000 square feet. They would propose an addition of 55,000, which would bring the building up to 100,000 square feet. All of these, by the way, you can see it says utilization factor 90%. That's something MSBA is looking for. They want to make sure you're using your room at a 90% utilization rate, so that there's not rooms that are sitting empty. They're going to say that you're oversized. So they factor these into the 90% utilization rate. That's 35 classroom sections at Forest Ave under this plan, with a minimum capacity of 632 and a maximum of 733. Again, that's a maximum. That means that building at that size could accommodate up to 730 kids. It wouldn't be that large. As a matter of fact, again, 650 is an estimate on the high side, so that building may not even be that full. But that's what we'd be talking about, consolidate. And, the other option would be, if you try to evenly disperse these kids across the 2 elementaries, then you have 2 buildings to go with, right? So we're trying to think about where's the building that meets the tension against Forest. Farley, yes, it's 26 years since it was renovated, but it has insulated windows, it has air conditioning, right? It has something Forest Ave doesn't have, and so that building isn't as acutely, any attention as Forest is. So when you think about the Forest Ave school, and again, it was an architectural firm that worked with us, but they did do architectural drawings of this. They just, basically letting us know this would add 12 classrooms plus some smaller instructional spaces for support. And they would largely be added into the back of the building. So you can see the red rectangle that's coming off the back end. That would be a 2-story addition in the back. Backwards, you see the, I had a point. Oh, good. Just not working. I shouldn't be trusted with the point. All right, never mind. So anyway, to try and orient you, I just showed you where the Woodrow entrance is, the Forest entrance, right? So you can see that driveway in the front of the building. The small red block in the front was just their way of saying like you can enhance the entrance that way by larger, more kids coming in the building, you want to have a more robust entrance. Where that says additional parking, that's all field and wooded area now, but it's a part of the property building. So again, this is all just sketched out, right? This isn't necessarily.
Parking would be so important though, because there's no other parking now, the kids were there, so.
Yeah, so they'd have to do some additional parking, and they recognize that, but you can see, like, they're just showing you that on the property, without getting anywhere near an environmental issues, which are way back, you can fit 2 play areas, this huge addition, and a ball field. So just some of the things to think about it for us. The original design is open concept, was very popular in the 70s, very popular for a short period of time, but a lot of buildings built that way. There are operable partitions between the classrooms. They're still there. And there's just these movable walls that are permanently closed, but that's how the building was designed. The windows are original 1975. We're estimating that the roof will need to be attended to in 5 to 7 years in some capacity. So like these are things that are aging on the building. The interiors, and they would assess it as poor to fair condition. Undersized elevator, when I say accessibility issues, it doesn't mean that kids and adults can't get around the building, but it's designed with a sunken library. Yeah, it looks beautiful, but you got to get around to the ramp to get down there, so like they don't design buildings that way anymore. And so it's those kinds of things. You got too many doors in there that are the round knobs and not the levers. Right? You've changed the ones that students use, but there's still doors here and there properly. Don't look properly. There's no fire protection system, meaning sprinklers. Air conditioning is partial, it's not really efficient, and unit vents, which bring the fresh air in the building, are all rich. It does have good boilers, just install that.
There's no sprinkler system?
No,
What happens if the building lights on fire?
well, it'll be gone. Yeah. So that wasn't required of construction back in that day, so it's not a sprinkler building. So that's that idea. And just to give you a sense in your packet, like on the left is the 2nd floor of Forest Ave right now. So the design is insane. You have these little hallways that go off the main hallway that go into like 4 classrooms that are together. But it's really limiting and not a good use of space. So you can see that the level of construction they're talking about. Potential there is to just even those classrooms out on the outer wall and actually build 2 smaller breakout rooms in the middle that would have like interior glass. To utilize the space a lot differently, and you could put a small group around there. So again, this was just a sketch of what could happen, but this is what they're talking about, better utilizing the space so that it's more efficient and you can get more kids to flow through there.
And from a safety perspective, the image on the right is much better
Yes.
if children need to quickly leave that building.
100%, yeah. Much more straightforward, yeah. And if we move on to the Mulready building, highest projected enrollment is, again, if we kept our 4 pre-K classrooms, could be 57 students. If we expanded, we could have room for up to 20 students in expansion. We would not add to the footprint of that building, it's 45,500 square feet, at a utilization factor of 9%. If we move the administrative offices to already, you would have the superintendent's office, student services, finance and operations, human resources, curriculum, facilities, all there. And I'll show you how this would look. Already a very simple floor plan. If you imagine in the space right sort of in the front, look at the building, that's the front driveway, right? The bottom right corner on the modulars in Cox Street is on the left side there, right? So if you think of the building sort of in 2 sections, you have classrooms that are in front, and then you've got all the sort of central functions, the library, the gym, the caf, the office, and then you have almost a mirror image on the back with the modulars attached to it. So actually not a bad design, and the bones of that building are really good. The roof is good, the heat new system in there, it's air conditioned, it's got almost 100% new windows. We have a plan in the next round of free cash to get the rest of them done, but the building's been well maintained.
Fix the
Where
kitchen.
was your conference?
Kitchen floors being done this summer, being
Nice.
replaced this summer.
Where was your conference room be?
Which conference room?
You have the Ashley Street building, you have that.
Oh, yeah, so I'll show you how we would map this up. So if you think of the building this way, the main entrance pre-K, that's the main entrance you currently use in Mulready, so it'll be that setup. And then on the top, those 4 classrooms of what they're showing would be pre-K classrooms. And then going this way, in the very front, that's 4 more classrooms that they're listing as, expansion. So again, we could open with 4, you could open with 8 if we have the ability to do that. And then along the other row there, that's where you can put art and music and a tech lab. So our pre-K students would have the ability to engage in specials as well. We have an office area, a library, the gym would stay. And then what I would see on the other side here, as you get into the cafeteria, that space, I think during the school day, would be utilized for kids to eat, our pre-K students to eat. But it's got a stage and it could be outfitted to, in the evenings, to become a school committee meeting room or a community meeting room, because kids would be out of the building by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So the other side of Mulready would be you'd have a separate entrance altogether, and if you go right into that hallway, and again, they're not showing any sort of walls coming down, but like they're just showing you where the classrooms are. Everything that's dark blue would essentially turn into some type of central office space. But you'd always have to do something with that first classroom when you come in, maybe that becomes the reception area. And then I would think that hallway, that when you take a left right now to go into the cafeteria, that's where there would be a secure door. So that if people entering the main entrance for admin would have no access to the preschool side of the building. It would be keyed, I would assume, with a chip so that staff could get through, but the public could not. On the bottom right where the modules are, you see those are grayed out. Again, that's expansion. Either we had programming there, office space there, or the modules could move. If we need them in another building, they are still modular. They can still be relocated. And then there's sort of one gray space that's the current art room up the top of that. I would just see being turned to, could be a conference room space. And depending on what you would need for cafeteria or gym space, you could even have professional development in one of those large spaces during the day. Who was there? If it's staff, I'm not worried about staff being in a building with children, right, where we're all there all day. We certainly would do anything else outside.
How long would the renovation at Forest Avenue take? And what would you do with students who are there doing it?
The architects did talk about that type of renovation that they sort of sketched out for us. It is possible to do. Well, Mulready would still be there. We wouldn't obviously move the consolidate schools until we had the space done. But what they would do is build the addition, and then they would move kids into the addition while they renovated the other section.
And that's exactly what happened at Farley. The addition went on, the entire school moved into the addition. They renovated the old, and then that's when we changed the boundary line, which we just changed back.
And the ad runners do take a little longer because of that. They have to sequence the projects, and sometimes that happens, but I don't know the scope of the length of time once you get the shovel on the ground. And then this is just in summary, just shows you sort of what we would have in our portfolio of buildings. You'd have Farley again with about 400 students, K-4, when again close to 600, 5 to 7. Mulready building would be a preschool program, district admin. Absolutely would close. Hudson High School would stay the same. This is showing it at 757, but I think that would be a little larger. And Forest Ave, again, showing 650, that's on the high end. It's hard to read up there, it's small, I'm sorry, but that's sort of how you get to the 84.8 million. They're estimating about $600,000 for a minor renovation at Farley to make the small changes that have to do within that building. 61.7 million is what they're estimating for Forest renovation, admin. About $3.5 million for Mulready to turn that into offices and preschool. So one of the downsides of the preschool idea is that you need to have bathrooms would need to be added. Probably for each classroom, we probably put one in between each 2 classrooms that they would share. Right? You need need to have bathroom facilities increase and so that'd be some cost there. Nothing at Quinn, they're estimating about $2 million at the high school if you wanted to do some significant rental, depending on the type of CTE program you would be looking at. And then they just add 15% what they call soft costs, 5% for furniture and equipment, and 5% contingency in that ratio, that rough total of $84.8 million. So like before we even get into it, serious discussion at the town level, like, there's work that needs to be done to really firm that. That's just, a rough estimate by the architects that did the program.
Brian, this is the only option that they provide their rough estimate on, is that correct?
No, they did provide costs. The rest of the report, but this was the most expensive. By far, I mean, it just was. I mean, there are options that were just not feasible that, they try to do one with no ad rentals anywhere. Like, what do we do if we're not touching the building? So we kind of jam people all over the place. The problem with those options is they started doing things like, the 7th grade of the high school, let's shrink it down. So these were things that were not our little group, including Chris, were saying like, these are things that are just a non-starter for us. Like we don't want to consider having a junior, senior high. It just didn't feel like the right move for us.
No, we'd rather concentrate on bringing the additional programs, bringing additional students.
But you said we'll have that full report so that we can see
Yes,
all.
you'll see all 9
options
options, yeah.
in the public as well.
And by the way, that doesn't mean that we can't, like, you may look at that report and say, hey, we really like to talk about option 7. Right, so I think that gives us the opportunity. I did want to process this with Chris a little bit, but we thought, given all the time we put into this, it made more sense to front load the option that we vetted and felt like was the most, was the best option, the preferred option, right? And then we can look at them all together and make some decisions around that. And we could engage with the public around. I wouldn't suggest we engage with them around all 9 because some of them you'll see are good.
The only wild card is if the admin building will last another 5 to 7 years.
Right, yeah.
Because we could get to the point in admin where that building isn't habitable safely.
That's kind of part of this, though. It's like the option of doing nothing. What is the cost associated with that? Just so we're starting with, there's not necessarily an option to do nothing, right? Because there's a cost associated with that. And I think that's an important part of this discussion, especially with the public. It's like, well, that's not really an option because there's a cost associated with us not doing something as well. And sort of what is that cost is an important question.
I mean, the one option we didn't talk about because the study wasn't focusing on that was, okay, let's take the schools and just leave them alone. Let's just find a new home for admin.
Yeah.
We did explore that a little bit around COVID, and they started looking at buildings that they were going to lease and what that looked like, and that's a cost that we don't have currently, right? Like having to have $1,000 in lease costs, right? So that's certainly something else that we just want to leave everything else as is. We're not going to do anything. We still end up with the Forest Ave building that's it's 51 years old and it's not animated or new, right? So like, I think one of the reasons why this option rose to the top for me was I knew that no matter what we did, we're going to be coming back at some point and asking for some work to be done on that elementary school, right? Or asking for the town to consider a new elementary and demolishing an elementary. So that's just the reality of it, right? And if you think about the cycle of what we've done here, we did an elementary in 99, we did the high school in 03, we did the middle school in 13, and it's now been 13 years we haven't done, right? So there's a cycle of these buildings, and that's the Forest Ave, and these architects really laid it out for us in terms of the condition of Mulready and Farley, much better than the condition of Forest Ave. So even if we're just looking at this through the lens of we're going to keep the schools the way they are, we still have an elementary that's like amazing.
And the possible statement of full-day pre-K. This would accommodate that.
Yeah, and I assume that in the report, there's some evidence that shows that our current capacity is not meeting the needs of the pre-K families in our town. That would be, if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know if it's called out directly because it isn't required that we have pre-K, so it might be hard for them to say. I mean, it's not, I certainly would say based on what we see when people,
wait lists.
Yeah, it's waitlist, right? So we know there's demand. So yeah, I don't know if it calls it out. It's a good point though, but I think we can assume based on sort of our own internal data that we see every year, that we know that there's, you know, and maybe it isn't a ramp up to 8 classrooms. Maybe we're doing it through 6 and then we're doing, you know, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to see what annual, we'd also look at the birth rates and see what we have, like, do we have the numbers at that point? I think one of the things that hurts the pre-K enrollment in Hudson for students not on IEPs is that their option is half day. And that can be a non-starter for families, like, you know, that just doesn't work, right? So they end up having to go to a private pre-K. If we offer a full day pre-K for any student, you know, it would be a game changer for some families because that private option is just more expensive. We could offer, I think, like an excellent program for kids at a reasonable cost.
But then we would have a building that's developmentally designed for pre-K students, which would be a huge benefit from the physical space, the furniture, to just what they're exposed to at the beginning of school.
Right.
I do think it would be great if we could share whatever we get from reports on birth rates and some of the information that we already have, but also on average, how many families do we have on a wait list every year for pre-K? And with the caveat that some aren't probably putting themselves out there because it is only half day, but I think that would be important to share. And for the sake of transparency, for people who don't comb through what I'm sure is many pages of a report, even if at our next meeting or some meeting in July, we could just have one slide on each option.
Yes, yeah.
Here's what it was, and here's why this would or would not work. I think just for people tuning in, I think it would be helpful for them to see.
I agree, yeah, I think we actually should do that. I didn't tonight only because I didn't want it to cloud. I really wanted to feature this option and then come back and talk about the others. One thing, for example, we talked about was having two pre-K through 4 or pre-K through 5 elementary schools, right? We have 2 subsector special education programs at the elementary level. We have a child development program and we have our SEA program. If we had 2 K-5 schools, we either have to continue to sort of bus, you know, kids across, and it would be, oh no, I'm sorry, let me back up for a minute. I got to lost I was going down the wrong road here. We talked about having a pre-K building at Mulberry, right?
That's what I thought I saw.
Yeah, pre-K instead, you know, together, right? But if we did that, our kindergartners have to access both the CDP and the SEA program. And we can't offer it that way. We'd have to have the program at the pre-K building, and then we'd have to have it at each of the elementaries. So,
And that caused admin to not be at Mulready.
and at
Because admin to be at the high school, which then limited our expansion to the.
Yeah.
And it's 2 transitions in 2 years for little kids,
Yeah.
and I think that's not always the.
And one of the other options talk about transitions, having a pre-K building, having a 1 through 2 or a K through 2 building, and then having a 3 and 4 building. So like the entire town of Hudson's kindergartners through 2nd grade, and what would go first and 2nd grade, whatever it would be at Farland. And then everybody moves over to Forest when they get to grade 3. That also was problematic with subsequent programs because we have to have 2 at each of the schools. Because it wouldn't be fair to have, let's say, if we had the child development program only at Forest, that meant that we would have kindergartners at a building that's designed for 3 and 4, right? So those are the elements that, like, on paper, initially I actually thought, yeah, geez, we could have a lower elementary and upper about that size, and then you start to think through the details, like, this is gonna be a problem. And even thinking about capturing space here for central office, it's a major renovation to turn one of these pods into, you know, to secure it. There's no parking, there's just, you know, on paper, it started a little good, but then I thought, and it also limited our opportunities to sort of expand programming for kids at the high school, so you could superintendent's office, you know, the right moves. But we will go through, there's a nice slide actually that you'll see in the report that shows the 9 of them. And it does walk you through all of them so you can see what it looked like, but so tonight, I just want you to get a taste.
Trying to hold to our timelines, so we
Sorry, I do have a couple of other questions about this. One, I just want to point out for anybody watching at home who doesn't have the diagrams in front of them, I was a little overwhelmed when I first saw the numbers for Forest, but one of the things that I appreciate about the sketch is that the grades are separate like they are Quinn. So you have kind of, here's your first grade
Cluster,
area
yeah.
out there, which I think helps create like a little kind of sub-environment within what would be a very large elementary school. So that's comforting. I am curious about some of the details show projected data through 2033, but what do we think is like the lifespan of the solution before potentially things change again and we're looking at different numbers? Do we think this would like withstand well beyond 2033, I hope, because we probably wouldn't even be.
So I think that will be part of the MSBA process, because you need to do even more enrollment studies. So, and if you're talking about us being 3 years from now, when we're actually getting, into it that deeply, you're going to have that for that data out even farther. Most places will only give you 10 years, so like we really do have some information through 2036 now, but they were using. So I don't know why they use that date, but we do have information that goes a little later than that. But yeah, that's a good point. We'd have to continue to circle back to that as we get this from that.
Especially when we get to the point that we are having conversations with the town about funding needs to show that we've got through.
Yes.
This is going to be the long term. And then last question for me for now, do we have any sense of what the transportation savings would be for us with only 2 elementary schools as opposed to 3, since pre-K typically doesn't have transportation?
We didn't get there yet, but that is something that would be a part of.
That'll be a huge factor for the budget, which will directly impact like overrides and things like that. So that information would be super helpful.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right. Next on the agenda, we have school committee member assignments. It's not really something that we need to discuss. Nothing has changed. I asked twice for input. 3 people emailed me that they wanted no change, and I didn't. Else, so everything stayed the same as last year. So,
Do you need a motion to approve these?
no.
Cool. Thank you.
Next, we have matters for action, old business policy updates.
So these are the 4 policies that we went through last meeting. In your packet were the clean copies. I did make one change based on feedback from our discussion, and it was on the access to building and grounds. I cannot find Yes, it was, I added, so 1, 2, third paragraph down, it now states during school hours and the school is in session, access to buildings and grounds of the Hudson Public Schools limited to district students and staff and those with legitimate business with the school or district and approved town activities. So I didn't specifically go into elections, I just figured there could be other items, but that is an approved town activity, so. Other than that, they're all reading the same as they were here, so if there aren't any questions, then this will be an opportunity for the school committee to vote, and then we would.
We can take one vote on all 4.
I think so, the motion might be if we could include the 4, even if you just use the letter, because then it will be.
Whoever makes a motion, you want to include all 4.
You don't say the title, you don't want to.
Make a motion to approve the policy update modifications to policy ECAB, policy EAFA, policy JFBB, and policy KBG.
The second one is EEAEA.
Oh, it's EA, sorry, I'm like,
Sorry about you, can't drive home, that's it.
Bell.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who is that?
Erica. The font doesn't agree with it. I can speak up.
Is there any discussion? John?
On the access to building and grounds, the title isn't spelled.
We'll fix it.
Just like that. It says ACESS.
Oh, on the
ACC.
actual policy, yeah.
Oh.
The header says ACE.
I believe that's just spelled.
You're right, yeah. It's
Down
down here
here
on the
on the
actual
page.
policy, not the, this one's just.
Okay, so maybe we corrected it after the fact. You might have noticed it this morning or something, so the one I have is corrected, but I'll make sure that it's corrected on that. Thank you.
Now I can see it.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, next we have new business, approval of superintendent's 2025 to 2026 evaluation report. So I'm going to turn this over to Chairperson Mall.
So Brian, I'm gonna share my screen now.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Good. Sorry, you're wrecking with this thing. Oh, look at
Okay, so I'll be presenting the superintendent evaluation, 2025 and 2026. Thank you. So for those who haven't seen this process before, I just want to go over our evaluation framework very quickly. You can see that on this circular flow chart. Initially, Dr. Regan presents goals. As a subcommittee, we discuss, and it goes to the full committee, and we discuss implementation. Dr. Regan provides updates through the year, and then it comes to a summative evaluation, which we're at now. Excuse me. The evaluation is in accordance with the state evaluation system from DESE for superintendent evaluation processes, which is based on professional goals and district standards. So tonight we'll go over the progress towards the goals, performance against the DESE standards, and the overall summative rating. So the goals, the first one was on district improvement, which is develop and mentor 3D principles. The second was around student learning, implementing benchmark advance, our new literacy program. The third, vocational school initiative, lead a feasibility study to evaluate potential for introducing state-approved career technical education, a CTE program at Hudson High. The fourth, marketing the district to implement a comprehensive communication strategy about the strength of Hudson's public schools to impact student retention. The fifth, conduct a space needs study, review K through 12 school buildings and present data-driven scenarios for potential building consolidation, repurposing to optimize operational efficiency and fiscal responsibility, which we just started a moment ago. The performance standards that we look at, standard one is around instructional leadership. And the indicators around that are within curriculum instruction, assessment, evaluation, decision-making, and student learning. Standard two is management and operations. The indicators are environment, human resource management, and development, scheduling and management, information systems, law, ethics, policies, fiscal systems. Standard three, family and community engagement, sharing responsibility, communications, family concerns. Standard four, professional culture, is commitment to high standards, cultural proficiency, communication, and continuous learning. Before I go further, I just wanted to define some of the evaluation terminology, how we evaluate. There are four different options. One's unsatisfactory, which is performance on a standard or overall has not significantly improved following a rating that needs improvement or performance is consistently below the requirements of the standard or overall is considered inadequate or both. The next is needs improvement / developing. Performance on a standard or overall is below the requirement of a standard or overall, but is not considered to be unsatisfactory at this time. Improvement is necessary and is expected. The next one is proficient. Proficient practice is understood to be fully satisfactory. This is the rigorous expected level of performance. And the last is exemplary. A rating of exemplary indicates that practice significantly exceeds proficient and could serve as a model of practice regionally and statewide. So our summative evaluation is on the screen now. And I'll go through them. On goal one, Dr. Regan met that goal. On goal two, the literacy program, Dr. Regan met that. Goal three, vocational. We have some progress there. Goal four, district improvement marketing. Dr. Regan met that goal. And the following goal, which is actually goal five, district improvement, the space needs study. Dr. Regan met that goal. And then against the standards, the indicators, for standard one, instructional leadership, the committee had an overall rating of proficient. Standard two, management operations, an overall rating of proficient. Standard three, family and community, an overall rating of proficient. And standard four, professional culture, an overall rating of proficient. I also do want to say that there were 5 overall ratings within the committee of proficient and 2 ratings of exemplary. I want to share some of the evaluator comments that were added to each evaluation. So I'm going to read a couple of those now. Brian's leadership and management skills managing the day-to-day operations of the Hudson Public Schools is a tremendous asset in the community. This past year, he was instrumental in passing 2 building renovation projects, one for Hudson High School and one for the C.A. Farley Elementary School, 1 year after leading the passage of operational override. All feedback that I received about Brian's related professional culture within the district is extremely positive. Under Brian's leadership, families are choosing to stay in the Hudson Public Schools more and more, rather than choosing other educational options. Brian's accessibility to the school committee, community engagement, marketing of the Hudson Public Schools, and attendance at school and town-related events is very high and well received. And I'm just going to read one more of these. Dr. Regan continues to impress me with his professionalism, creative problem solving, and dedication to the Hudson School District. Though only some progress was made on Goal 3, the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee had indicated that some progress on this goal this year would be more than expected, given the criticality of the remaining goals. Dr. Regan met the other 4 goals, continuing to position Hudson as a district of choice. Dr. Regan's performance on the standard was exemplary, in my opinion, because he continued to face unexpected challenges and headwinds in the 2025-2026 school year. Yet he handled them with the utmost professionalism, always prioritizing student staff outcomes and balance with the needs of the broader Hudson community. This included the steady handling of security-related incidents, coordinated closely with the Hudson Police and Fire Departments. I believe Dr. Regan's practice and approaches could serve as a model of practice regionally or statewide. And in closing, I just want to add one more thing there that sort of piggybacks off that comment, which was this past year, we did have a swatting incident where there was, a potential threat in a building. And Dr. Regan was someone who ran into that building, which I think really captures exemplary leadership. So with that, I just want to thank the subcommittee, the school committee, Dr. Regan, and all the other folks that participated in what I think we consider a very successful year. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I think that, when Brian came here, this is the 3rd year of his original 3-year contract. Last year, we chose to change that 3-year contract into a new 5-year contract so that we could guarantee him for 7 years. And I think that the town of Hudson and the school department is much better off for it. And I think he's doing an excellent job.
100% agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Zach, and all of you for your feedback. I do want to recognize my own disappointment in the vocational technical goal. I think as I was going through the year, I felt like I might have been on more than I could chew around those goals. So it is something that I hope you'll allow me to continue to have as a goal going forward, because I think now that we've got Lauren firmly in place, she's got a good team that can actually work with me to do that. As the year went on, I felt like it was not a good time to put this on the new high school principal either, in addition to my own limitations. So I just want to recognize that and appreciate your thinking around that. And then just the last thing I want to say is I've worked in multiple districts, 3 in the central office. Superintendent's success is largely possible by the type of school committee he or she works with. School committees that allow the superintendent to do the work that they're charged to do with appropriate oversight. The superintendent then is able to be successful. And so I am very grateful for this board. I'm not saying that because you're my bosses and I'm running you up. But having worked in places where the board feels like they're working just against you all the time, it's a place where I feel an immense amount of support from the school committee, and that allows me to pass that on to my team, which really makes a huge difference. I love when you ask questions. I want to be challenged. I don't at all approach this job with the idea that don't question what I'm doing. Engage with me, ask questions. I want to engage with you, but really it is important. I think we have a very high functioning board here in Hudson. When I talk to my colleagues across the Commonwealth, many of them are jealous when I kind of explain how things tend to work here. So I just want to mention that. I appreciate, and my team does, because they know the support that I get can trickle down to them. So,
And I would agree with that. I think we have a very well functioning board.
thank you.
So when the superintendent's the superintendent goal subcommittee meets, just because we've met a goal doesn't mean it comes off, because there's a couple that can stay on there. The most important goal for me for next year is the chapter 74/CTD goal, because I knew we wouldn't complete that goal this year. And I think it's very important for sustainability of as a high school going forward. So I definitely want to see that goal stay, and I think it's the one that needs to be concentrated on.
Good timing for it too.
Yeah, and I think I would add that I think this was the first year that we started to really tie the strategic goals to the superintendent's goals, and I think we'll, second time around, we'll be able to refine that and get that even sharper. But that does need to be the next priority besides all the other things that we've talked about.
And I think that was a difficult goal too, because, and of course, I think we all want to see it continue because it was reliant on the results of the space needs study. There was the policy that went through, we were waiting for some larger guidance. So I just want to say for me personally, it was difficult for me to say like, not met because it technically wasn't, but I really do not believe that was a reflection on you and your commitment to that goal. It was just didn't fit into the nice little box on the evaluation. So,
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so we need to vote on this. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation as presented. Second.
You never know who it is.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. And then we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Sorry, second.
We're having a little comedy show over here today.
All those in favor? Unanimous. And then we need, are there any items of interest to the school committee?
I just have two quick things. Just being at the end of the school year, a couple of things that are coming up in the community is just some questions around how we celebrate kindergarten graduations and fourth grade graduations being big milestone years. And we've talked before about how different schools navigate that differently. And I think most of us are in support of wanting the schools to have some autonomy and independence in how they do that. But I do think that moving into the next school year, just as we continue the work around mentoring new principals and bringing new principal into the equation and think about what elementary school is going to look like in Hudson, there should be some consistency, like a minimum standard, I think, for kindergarten and fourth grade, because there are a lot of people who are feeling really sad that those milestones weren't recognized in the way that they saw recognized in other spaces. There's been differences before in language and regular ed even within the same school, and so I'd love to just flag that for us as a concern for the community so that we can continue to think about how we might be able to support in that area. And then totally unrelated, I just have a general question around bathroom policies, specifically at the middle school. I know there's no mandates for this, but is there kind of a procedure around how many times students are allowed to use the bathroom during certain classes or throughout the day, or is that more teacher-specific expectations for their classroom? Do you know?
I don't know, but I will look into it because I would be concerned if we have limitations. I don't support those types of policies.
Neither do I, and I think that we do.
Yeah.
And I understand why, like, that might be necessary in some situations for obvious reasons, but also why that might not be okay. So if we could just clarify.
I can follow up with that, just make sure that there's some clarity. I think a lot of times, just my years as a principal, one of the things I would find would happen a lot is I would set expectations and then you find out down the road that something slightly different is happening in a particular classroom. So I think we have to constantly be reminding teachers that it can't be a classroom management system. It can't involve that. Kids can use the bathroom, use the bathroom. And if there's a concern that we deal, yeah, and deal with the concern, we think there's something going on through a different process, so.
Thank you.
I just want to recognize back to the fourth grade graduation, I shared this with you earlier, is the dual language. Some of the kids got a certificate for high proficiency in dual language, in Portuguese and English, from fourth grade due to the dual language program. So I thought that was remarkable. So just floored by it. So I just
And
wanted
that
to share
certificate they
that.
received is the same one that we had 131 seventh graders receive a similar award at Quinn. And that puts them on track for the CLY literacy from the state and when they get it to high school. So it is very exciting. And Hudson continues, because of dual language or other programs, but we continue to be one of the top in the state in terms of the number of percentage of kids that are receiving the CLY. So that's again, something else to kind of put out there. Because that is a state recognized award, so.
Awesome.
Anybody else? I make the motion to adjourn. Chris,
Second. Marcia.
all those in favor? It's unanimous, and we are adjourned at 9:05.
See you in July.